Superstation, the Future Radio. Hey, I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Monday, February 15th, 2021, and we are live. Hope everybody's doing well today. So it's been a very busy day. We're halfway through African American History Month. I'm doing presentations, preparing for presentations, have an online class that I'm teaching on Tuesday nights as well. Ancient Kemet, the Moors and The Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. And today we're going to be joined by cultural anthropologist, Sista Nubia Wardford, who is going to be speaking in my class on Tuesday. And she does archaeological digs in the Sudan. And you've heard her on the African History Network show before. We're going to talk about the origins of ancient Kush and the African Queens of Antiquity, the origins of ancient Kush and African Queens of Antiquity. So we're going to have her on here in a few minutes and deal with some African history, some ancient African history, talk some about her archaeological digs, etc. She's an African American female archaeologist. And oftentimes when you watch the History Channel or you look at National Geographic, things like that, you don't see African American female archaeologists. Okay, so I've had her here on the show a number of times, even going back to Blog Talk Radio days. I've had her on the African History Network show. So we'll discuss that. And then there was a discovery in Egypt, and the news came out a couple days ago about an ancient beer factory unearthed by archaeologists in Egypt. Now, many of you heard about this. We posted about this on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network. Actually, the news came out from the Associated Press on Tuesday, on Sunday, February 14th. Actually, February 14th, Valentine's Day, which is also the birth date of the assumed birth date of Frederick Douglass. Okay, February 14th. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. And as I said before, these archaeological discoveries happen all the time. Okay, and you hear about them every month. These archaeological discoveries are taking place. And you'll read about them in National Geographic. You'll see articles from NBC News, Washington Post, New York Times, Associated Press. I see their articles. Ancient beer factory unearthed by archaeologists in Egypt. American and Egyptian archaeologists have unearthed what could be the oldest known beer factory at one of the most prominent archaeological sites of ancient Egypt. A top antiquities official said on Saturday, February 13th. So we'll discuss that archaeological discovery as well. And then we know that we didn't get a chance to talk about it on our Sunday show, but we know that on Saturday, the U.S. Senate acquitted Donald Trump. You have 43 traitorous Republicans who were too cowardly to convict Trump, okay, even though they know he was guilty. So we'll talk a little bit about that in the last segment of the show. Trump acquitted in impeachment trial by spineless Republicans. It was 57 that voted to convict him. It was the most number that voted to convict the president in U.S. history, and it was the most bipartisan impeachment vote also in U.S. history. So we'll discuss that as well. Okay. All right. Now, so on the African History Network show, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world. Because right now, it's correct wrong behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. So when you control the radius of a man or woman's thoughts, You can control the circumference of his or her actions because the mind can do or teach what it doesn't know. Now, we deal with a number of different topics here on the African History Network show. We deal with current events in history, politics, education, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, love, sex, health issues, relationships, love, sex, health issues, and much, much more. Sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word Kemet, Kemet, to 22828. To sign up for our email newsletter, text the word Kemet, Kemet, to 22828. To sign up for our email newsletter. Also, visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, and sign up for our email newsletter there as well. Okay. If you'd like this type of information, also you can support the African History Network, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show, paypal.me/the AHN Show. All right, so you can still register for the online course that I teach, Ancient Kemet, the Moors and The Maafa. Understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. We deal with thousands of years of history. And we deal with what led up to the transatlantic slave trade happening. Okay, it is, and when we deal with the transatlantic slave trade, we can't start our history in slavery. We can't start in the mid 15th century. We can't start with the Portuguese going into Mauritania in 1441. We can't start with 1619 in Virginia. We have to deal with thousands of years of history leading up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. And we have to deal with the 800-year occupation of Europe by the Africans known as the Moors. Because the Moors, when they go in the 8th century AD, going in 711 AD, they're taking the teachings from ancient Kemet, ancient Egypt, from the Nile Valley region of Africa into Europe. And these teachers are going to bring Europe out of the Dark Ages. We know in 2019, that was the 400th year anniversary of August 20th, 1619. And a lot of people were reconnecting to Africa, and it was known as the year of return. Okay. So, but we have to understand hundreds of years of history and thousands of years of history that led up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. So you can visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can register for the online course. You can watch from around the world. We do the sessions live on Wednesday. We do the sessions live on Tuesdays, 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm sorry, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm on the air at 11 p.m. 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then all the sessions are recorded also, so you can go back and watch it over and over again. All right, watch from around the world. So it's regularly $130, on sale $80. You can register right now, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, or click on the link that we just posted right here on the thread of the broadcast. As soon as you register, you can watch a class from February 9th, and there's also bonus content, and I'm adding more bonus content as well. I talked to Dr. David Imhotep, author of the book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. And I talked to him on Saturday, okay? This book here, I talked to him on Saturday. I said, when's your new book coming out? The First Americans Were Africans Revisited. He said by the end of March 2021, the new book will be out. And he's going to be my guest speaker in the class on our Tuesday class, February 23rd. Okay, so we'll deal with the First Americans Were Africans, and we'll deal with some of his research and things like this. We'll deal with this in our Tuesday, February 23rd class. Okay, and so Tuesday, February 16th, we have Sista Nubia Wardford, and we'll talk about ancient Kush and the African Queens, things like this. And then Tuesday, February 23rd, we have Dr. David Imhotep. All right. Okay. I want to go to, this is what we're going to do. Shakita, we're going to go to clip 1, okay, because we have time before we go to the break. We have Sista Nubia coming on after the break. And this is a good topic to deal with during African American History Month as well. As I was talking to Sista Nubia before the show, you know, so many of these African American History Month celebrations focus on slavery and runaway slaves and Dr. King, Rosa Parks, and all that is important. But you have to understand a chronology of history also, and understand our history beyond slavery and before slavery. Okay. All right. So we're going to go to I want to go to clip one, Shakita. So we saw, I watched the impeachment trial. I knew what the outcome was going to be. I knew that you were going to have some spineless Republicans who were who wanted to save their political careers, or they were afraid of intimidation by some of Donald Trump's thug supporters, the Proud Boys, and things like this, right? So we saw the acquittal vote on Saturday in the Senate, 57-43. We saw several Republicans switch over to convict Trump. I want to go to this clip here from the Today Show. Trump acquitted in second impeachment trial with 7 Republicans voting to convict. Let's go to this clip, Shakita.
Twice tried, twice acquitted. And while that is not the outcome that Democrats had hoped for, the House managers believe they presented evidence and insight about the former president's role in the insurrection that achieves something important. No conviction, but a surprise in the verdict.
This was the most bipartisan presidential impeachment in the history of the United States.
7 Republicans turned against Donald Trump and voted to convict him for inciting the insurrection.
Mr. Romney, guilty. Ms. Collins, guilty.
The abuse of power and betrayal of his oath by President Trump.
Mr. Cassidy, guilty.
The Constitution in our country is more important than any one person. I voted to convict President Trump because he is guilty.
Late Saturday, President Biden released a statement remembering the riot's victims and those who stood guard. The president said, while the final vote did not lead to a conviction, the substance of the charge is not in dispute. But 43 Republicans stood by former President Trump.
He is hereby acquitted of the charge.
Mr. Trump's lawyers reacted much like he would.
We try to pick a really good case. A win is a win.
Calls for fundraising by the Republican National Committee. Don Trump Jr.'s bravado on social media.
With Republicans like Mitt Romney, who needs Democrats? You know, those clowns.
And from Florida, the former president told supporters, I look forward to continuing our incredible journey together. But wait.
A disgraceful dereliction of duty.
GOP leader Mitch McConnell, who voted not guilty, called Mr. Trump morally responsible for the insurrection, deadly violence, and failure to protect his own vice president and the Capitol. McConnell says he believed the Senate could not convict a former president, while suggesting criminal prosecutors should examine the facts.
President Trump is still liable for everything he did while he was in office. Didn't get away with anything yet. Yeah.
But frustrated Democrats insist they proved their case and Trump's culpability. The trial is over. The damage done that day is not.
We believe that we have shown that this president is a disgrace to our country.
Look at what Republicans have chosen to forgive.
And since leaving office, of course, the former president has kept a very low profile. How long will that continue? As part of his written statement, he talked about his patriotic and beautiful MAGA movement, and that there would be a time when he would announce his plan soon so they could continue their work together. It's only just begun, he writes. Now, some argue that that could mean that the president could use his considerable campaign war chest to campaign against some of those Republicans who voted against him. Willie?
Kelly O'Donnell starting us off at the White House. Kelly, thanks so much.
Okay, so that's from the Today Show. That's from February 14th, Sunday, February 14th, 2021. Video acquitted in second impeachment trial with 7 Republicans voting to convict. You can go to NBCnews.com and find that clip, and also at MSNBC.com as well. All right, we're coming up on a break. On the other side of the break, we'll be joined by cultural anthropologist Sista Nubia Wardford, and we'll discuss ancient Kush, the origins of ancient Kush, and we'll talk about some African queens as well. You listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by, everybody. We're on commercial break. Stand by. All right. You can register for the online course. We posted the link. There. How's everybody doing? All right. How's everybody doing? Who we have here? Culture. We have John Ray. Visit workingwithjohnray.com. Workingwithjohnray.com. Okay, stand by, everybody. We're on commercial break. How you all doing today? Everybody share this broadcast on our social media, on your social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in also. Stand by. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation, the Future Radio. Hey, I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Monday, February 15th, 2021, and we are live. All right, so you've heard me talk about Sista Nubia Wardford a number of times. She is a cultural anthropologist. She is from Detroit, with a Bachelor's of Arts degree in anthropology and a Master's of Arts degree in historic archaeology. She has worked at major museums in the Detroit area, such as Wayne State University Anthropology Museum, the Henry Ford Museum, the Detroit Institute of Arts, and as a registrar, which is the caretaker of the collections at the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History. And she has been to the Sudan a number of times to do archaeological digs. And she is proud to be involved in her greatest endeavor, which is the research and excavations of ancient Nubia at the Isle of Meroe in the Sudan. In November of 2015, a large discovery was made at the field site in Sudan, where she has previously excavated. And we'll talk a little bit about that discovery and some other things as well. I want to welcome back to the African History Network show, Sista Nubia Wardford. How you doing today, sister?
I'm doing well. Thank you for inviting me back.
All right, no problem, no problem. Well, look, you know, it's African American History Month, and I know I've been to some of your presentations. You have fantastic presentations dealing with ancient Kush and dealing with the African queens and the Kandakis and things like that. So I reached out to you a few days ago. I said I wanted you to speak to my Tuesday online class to share some of this information, and I wanted to bring you on today to the show So we talk a little bit about the origins of ancient Kush and African Queens of Antiquity. So first off, explain to people what Kush, usually spelled Kush. Explain to people, what is ancient Kush?
Ancient Kush is a land in Sudan. In this region predates ancient Kemet. It is the area, probably in the pervious area of the Hapi, known as the Nile River, between the third and fifth cataracts. And there are plenty of archaeological evidence that points to this civilization can go back as far as 100,000 years old.
Okay, hold on. Okay, so you said there's plenty of evidence showing that civilization goes back at least 100,000 years old.
At least, probably older than that, but at least 100,000 years old. There's been human activity on the banks of the Nile River. They call it the Khartoumian culture, but they're also the A groups in ancient Kush predate ancient Kemet, and this area just goes farther back into antiquity than is known right now. But there's a lot of archaeological research there, and we will know much more in a few years. As the technology expands, we'll definitely know a little bit more about this civilization, because it's still quite mysterious.
Okay, so when you talk about, a lot of times when people talk about African history, they'll talk about ancient Egypt, ancient Kemet, but what comes before it is oftentimes left out. Nubia, Ta-Nehisi, Abyssinia, Ethiopia, things like this. So when we talk about Kush, are we talking about ancient Kush? Are we talking about a country or a region?
We're talking about a region. The region of ancient Kush stretches back from what we call what would be north part of Upper Kemet, and it's said as Upper Kemet because of the flow of the Nile River. But Upper Kemet is what we would call ancient Kush, and it flows down from that area, which is northward, and it goes down further south, several miles, probably about 70 to 250 miles further down that river. And so all of that area would be ancient Kush. Ancient Kush's tentacles stretch as far back, names being associated with it, all the way to India as well as Turkey, which we know that ancient Egypt stretched out across the Red Sea to an area which is now known as Turkey, but we're not exactly sure. Historians don't exactly know exactly well how far that it reached, and a lot of that is just under investigation. I don't like to say it was for sure, but we do know that there was an African presence in Asia.
Right. So when you talk about going into Turkey and India, okay, so we're talking about ancient Kush being a region, not a country, and at one point extending into Turkey and India. Is that correct? Did I hear you correctly?
Well, we know that there are the 7 gates of Kush that are mentioned in Turkey, and we also know that there's the Kush Mountains in Hindu Kush Mountains that are in India. So we do know that somehow culturally that there was a reach there, but as far as how significant its presence there, it's not exactly been, it's no exactment on that.
Okay.
But we do know that there was a presence.
Okay. Now, I know there was, I have some articles dealing with ancient Kush, one from blackpast.org, another from face-to-faceafrica.com, and they talk about the Kingdom of Kush in its three major cities, Meroe, Kerma, and Napata. Okay. Now, when we talk about usually, and I've been to some of your presentations are fantastic. If you all ever get to go see one of Sista Nubia Wardford's visual presentations she does, is fantastic. And then she also ties the history and the you talk some about the symbols in Christianity and like how they go back into ancient Egypt, ancient Kemet, things like this as well. When we talk about Nubia or Ta-Nehisi, like being the mother of ancient Egypt, ancient Kemet, okay, and there's twice as many pyramids in the Sudan as there are in Egypt. Okay, talk about that relationship for a minute, please.
The relationship is like a relationship of cousins. Cousins that sometimes feud with each other. There have been many times that they weren't friends, but they have reunited several times in history. The question is, when weren't the Kushites and the people from ancient Kemet relating to each other? Because they related to each other all through their history. The queens, the most famous queen in the 18th dynasty, of course, is Queen T, who comes from ancient Kush and was a commoner because of her brilliance. And she was a very intelligent girl, mathematician, and she became key in negotiations between ancient Kush, as well as she did negotiations across the Mediterranean Sea. She did a lot of negotiations with the people in Asia, which we would call Arabic at this time. So she was a key negotiator, mathematician. This relationship also was present in the 12th dynasty with that family. We are finding out that Karakamoon, who is a Kushite priest, is living in the 25th dynasty. That Anthony Browder is actually researching. So that with Karakamoon living from ancient Kush and living in Kemet as a priest, that tells you how important that culture was still in ancient Kemet, because relationships with the priests, with that culture being such a spiritual culture, the priests were very important part of the ruling families and how they ruled very close to the connection of the Most High. And so the priest was a very powerful person, and the fact that the high priest came from Kush means that relationship had not been broken.
Right. Well, Browder's a mutual friend of ours, Tony Browder, and I've interviewed him a number of times. I've interviewed him about his excavation of I can't remember if it was the tomb or the site of Karakamoon.
The tomb of Karakamoon.
Yeah, the tomb of Karakamoon. Yeah, and I read his book. He put out a book about that a few years ago. I read his book also, dealing with that as well. So I got to reach out to Browder again and get him back on the show. Okay.
Very significant work there.
Yes.
Probably the largest Black African American archaeological site in the world, where African Americans are volunteering. He's the lead archaeologist on the site in Egypt. So it's a very, very, very important site. And it gives this relationship, because what they're doing is recreating the burial grounds, which some of the significant burial grounds are Sedanga and Nuri, the royal burial ground in Bejawiya and Merowe. And then we have the El Kuru. And so what Browder, the people that are living in ancient Kemet, Browder is finding that they are actually going to Kemet and recreating El Kuru in Kemet, which means that they never forget. They never forget about their past. They build upon their past.
The
queen that you just showed, though, is one of my favorites, Amana Kashito.
Right. And I'm showing another queen named Sista Nubia Wardford right now. But let's talk about Amana Kashito. I'm showing your website right now, Nubia. So let me give you a website.
Okay.
Let me give you a web. Let me do this shameless plug for you. So visit her website. ancientnubiancities.com, ancientnubiancities.com. And right on, and you can see Sista Nubia in the Sudan doing an archaeological dig. You can read about her, read about the excavations and things like that. And so let's talk about Monica Shitos. So there was, and I think I first found out about her from you in some of our interviews that I've done with you over the years. And I Googled. So today I was pulling together this segment of the show. And I'm working on another project. I'm doing a presentation for a corporation tomorrow. And I'm working on that project. But I Googled your name, and a lot of your stuff, a lot of references to you came from the African History Network show, right? Going back to our Blog Talk Radio interviews. But
Thank you.
Oh, no problem. But Monica Shito, I think I first found out about her from you. So tell us about Monica Shito.
Monica Shito was a very, very famous queen. She was I call this period, it was a 350-year period in ancient Kush that was ruled by queens. So I call this period the Queendom of Kush,
yes,
not the Kingdom of Kush, because these queens were ruling. They venerated the goddess Offset, which is known as Isis.
Mm-hmm.
And so these queens ruled with a tough hand. The Kushite army, which was over 100,000 soldiers, would protect the area. The Roman army of Augustus Caesar was coming to plan to sack ancient Kush and steal all the gold. And so Monica Shito came, on page 155, you'll see an African Civilizations book by Sheikh Anta Diop, and he tells this story where she rides into the encampment on a couch, on a covered plush couch in between two elephants. And she rides in and she tells Augustus Caesar, you can ride in, but you won't ride back out.
Right.
And so her people stay. His camp, she takes dismembers his statue, beheads it, takes the head back, and she buries his head in the threshold of her throne. So when she steps on her throne, she steps on his face every time, buried underneath. And they recovered that bust from under where her throne sat there. I actually visited her spa, her sauna there in ancient Meroe. The palace is still there. And the spot where her throne was. Her palace was the largest palace in the area. Her daughter inherits the whole thing after she passes away and steps down. And Ameneris is the queen that they call One-Eyed Candace, who Strabo actually describes as being quite muscularly. And he said that her strength she would definitely would be something to contend with in the battle. And she had one eye. A scar on her eye, which was thought that she, because she would fight on the front line with the soldiers. She was actually out battling. So these women had a history of ruling not only with a strong army, but they would be seen on the battlefield. Monica Shito was known to be on the battlefield with her elephants. So they ruled, and they ruled very strongly. They protected their gold. They built strong armies. They protected their area. The inhabitants of the Isle of Meroe was possibly over 500,000 people. So she had a lot of people to protect. And
right.
Of course, the valuable thing in ancient Kush was the gold, and a lot of people would come in the area looking for that.
Okay, now the term Kandaki, which is also pronounced Candace, or mispronounced Candace, but the term Kandaki, that means Queen Mother or Queen Regent. Is that correct?
Yes, the Kandaki means Queen Mother or Great Mother or Great Woman.
Okay.
Depending on who is, who's giving the definition of it.
Okay. Now, when we look at is the correct pronunciation Meroe?
Meroe.
Meroe, okay, Meroe, Meroe. So the Kandakis of Meroe were the queens of the kingdom of Kush. And they're going now. So Meroe is in what is now called the Sudan. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So and what's
Meroe is in Sudan. The reason why it's called the Isle of Meroe because it's in between the Adbar River and the Nile River, a tributary which runs a small river that runs off of the Nile River. And so we have the land that's in between that being called the Isle of Meroe.
Okay. And what I think is really important is to understand that most of the geographical demarcations or boundaries that exist today in Africa are the result of the Berlin Conference of 1884 and 1885. One. Two, when you look at these, when we look at Kush as a region and as a region in general, as opposed to a country, and it encompasses these other kingdoms within it, right? It's like we have to reorientate ourselves geographically to what was in antiquity, as opposed to looking at the boundaries, that are there today, and how we look at it today, Sudan, and because the lower portion of Egypt and the upper portion of Sudan in ancient time was basically Nubia, so it's like a total reorientation, I think, that many of us have to go through to understand what it looked like in antiquity, where these different kingdoms were. Well, what are your thoughts on that?
I think there's a lot of reorientation that has to be done. The antiquity of this civilization being the age of it, going back to more than 100,000 years. I think that because of the way that the people in antiquity arranged their land and where they lived, that's in direct relationship to the Hapi, the Nile River, and that these people were in that area for a significantly long time, and it goes further back in time. Probably will the significance also is that this area probably is dated back to, I'm going to stretch it further back to 300,000 years, and so
which area?
The whole, I'd say, the whole area, all the way going back to the origins of this area, which is to be the topic tomorrow. The origins of ancient Kush go all the way back as far south as India.
Okay.
We do have DNA evidence from a couple of people that have gotten their DNA that actually they have Australia Aborigines who sometimes they say that the Aborigines, it depends on who you talk to, said that they're just the indigenous of Australia. But many of the people in the area, specifically Fijians, say they're from Tanganyika, which is modern day Tanzania.
Right.
So we think antiquity goes back as far as 300,000 years, probably before, because there was a fence with 300,000 years. So to get to that period where your technology has developed to that point, it takes tens of thousands of years as well. So it's going to be pushed further back. My theory is that they pretty much puddle jumped from all the different tributaries and rivers from the tip of Africa, followed them along, because remember that this area had much more water in it at that time. And so that these actually, if you look at a map of the rivers, you can just follow them from the southern tip all the way there. My archaeological research and my degree, again, Michael, is I do archaeological research.
Right.
So even though it's a branch of anthropology, I'm a holistic cultural scientist. So I do the anthropological work, I do the historical work, as well as I do the oral history as well. And much of the oral history, because that's our tradition, is very, very accurate for that area. It matches the documentation very, very closely. So, archaeologists and historians typically in academia don't trust or don't say that the oral history is credible. Where I think it could be much more credible than thought,
Right.
previously thought.
Yeah, and I've learned
Ancient Kushite culture goes down, originates from that area.
Right. And I've learned a lot about the oral traditions from you also in some of your presentations and some of our conversations, because the oral traditions have to be incorporated. So when we study the history, it can't just be the archaeological discoveries, the artifacts. It also has to be you also have to incorporate into that the oral traditions as well. Okay, so that's the
oral traditions, the historical documentations. What do the people themselves say about themselves instead of what's interpreted? The good thing about ancient Kemet is that the people did write about themselves. Now we think that some of it might have been a little bit, pumped up, a little bit exaggerated, because the kings, there were disputes with each other. They would leave different people out of history, and of course they would sometimes, just kind of make themselves, a little bit larger than they were, or embellish themselves a little bit. But the history of the country is told by themselves, and
right.
what the ancestors said in all of their documentation, ancient Kush, ancient Kemet, is that they are from the south. The question is, how far south is south?
How far south is south? Okay, so are you talking about going into what we today call South Africa? You talking about the southern tip of Africa, or
southern tip of Africa?
Okay,
the southern tip of Africa, which we know we recently in the last 3 to 5 years, there's a structure there that's been dated back to 250,000 years. So there's also the structure in Botswana that's 300,000 years, and there's also
in Botswana. Yeah.
The fence that's 300,000 years old, and then through language we know that Himalaya. It says the Himalaya Kush. You know what I mean? We know that means black killer. You know what I mean? So I think it equates. It could, you know what I mean? It could be, and this is something that we'd have to do more historical research. But I think it relates to the army, the
right.
Kushite army, and that because it just relates. I mean, if you follow the cuisine, the food culture in India, and the food culture in Ethiopia are very related. The
yes.
use of the curries, the way that it's cooked, it's very, very related. And the people, when the Greeks and the Romans came to that area, they called the people in this area Ethiopians, all of them.
In India, yep.
The people from Ethiopia, and they also called them Indians. Sometimes you'll see that they call the people Indians.
The people were Indians.
Relationship.
Sometimes they call the people. Sometimes they call the people were Indians. Okay, in Ethiopia,
they call the people in ancient Kemet and the people in ancient Kush, the people in Eritrea, they call them Indians because they look similar to those people.
Right.
They're all black people.
Right.
All kinds of the same kind of facial structures, same kind of hair, everything. And so these people typically, they were misnamed Caucasians because many of them had straight hair.
Right.
Everything comes from African.
Right.
Straight hairs and straight noses come from African.
The aquiline
Blue
features.
Eyes and green eyes come from Africans. So there's nothing that's created that you cannot find in the African race. And we should not, and remember the ancient Kush and ancient Kemet was also a metropolis because this is the wealthiest area. It was the most beautiful area. They had running water. They had indoor toilets. They had bathrooms. They weren't throwing fecal matter out of the windows in these cultures.
Like they were in Europe.
Cleanliness and hygiene. And people that lived in other places of the world, the education was egalitarian for women and men. The education for women is a tradition in its whole east region. That's what, because of the misfortune of Hypatia, because she was a daughter of a famous scholar and she became a scholar.
Hypatia,
and because she was so charming, she was executed, basically.
Yep.
So, we have these traditions from ancient Kush and ancient Kemet that are present today with the education of men and women that have been followed for the last 6,000 years at least. Because the head of the medical school was a sister. I forget her name at this time. The head of the medical school in Egypt was a woman. So sometimes we look at the problems that between men and women in Western society, and that Black men have adopted some of these ill practices in the illnesses of Western culture, where women were highly respected in these cultures and thought as egalitarian. As we see Queen T, who is represented when you first walk in the Cairo Museum in Egypt, Queen T greets you with her arm around her husband, the same height, which means that he respected her as equal power next to him, and it's the first representation in history. Well, the Kushite region and the Kemetic region walk hand in hand together, just like that, as far as their respect for women. So the queens of ancient Kush were respected around the world, and those women were also part of the Queen of Queens, the empresses in that area, and the tradition still holds today. If you know a woman from Sudan, you know a very proud woman, because they are very proud, they are very articulate, and most of them are very highly educated, and this tradition is 6,000 years old. This is a picture that he's showing of Queen T, which her arm is wrapped around lovingly of her husband. I always kid and say, well, I'd love him a lot too. He was only the richest man in the world, Imhotep, and she's there, the same height, being represented right there. And we walk into that Cairo Museum, and the first thing you see is them sitting there, huge, large, 50 feet tall at least. And it just shows their strength and their power. It's a very powerful image. And I believe they left these images for us to see, for us, so we would know who we are.
Exactly. This is Queen T and her husband Imhotep III. Well, look, Sista Nubia, I kept you longer than I planned to, but you just kept going, so I just let you keep going. I said I'm not gonna stop you because the sister's gonna beat me up if I stop you. But we're almost out of time here. So very quickly, one, visit her website, ancientnubiancities.com, ancientnubiancities.com. How can you have a coloring book there? People can purchase your coloring book. How much is your coloring book?
The coloring book there is $8. It includes shipping and handling. So it's $8. There's two for $14. It can be shipped anywhere in the United States and the Caribbean islands. So I know that your show goes worldwide, so we don't really know where people are listening from. And I'm looking forward for tomorrow's class.
Exactly.
He's given me 25 minutes. I wish I had a full 30 minutes.
I mean, you can have 30 minutes, sister. We have 2 hours for the class, so take your time. I mean, you can have as much time as you want to. I have 2 hours for the class. So very quickly, India was a colony of Ethiopia going back about 9,000 years ago. Okay, so this is understanding that history. Also, I talked to Dr. David Imhotep on Saturday. He told me to tell you hi. Okay. And yep, author of The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. His new book he said it'll be out by the end of March 2021. Okay, so everybody, look, Sister Nubia Wardford is going to be our guest speaker at our online class Tuesday, February 16th. Ancient Kemet, the Moors and the Maafa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. You can register for it now. It's an 8-week online course. We do it thousands of years of history. It's a visual. It's visual. You can ask questions in the class through the live chat. All the sessions are recorded also. So if you miss it, you can go back and watch it over and over again. Visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can register right there. It's regularly $130. It's on sale $80. As soon as you register, you can watch the class on February 9th. And then there's bonus content also. February 23rd, Tuesday, February 23rd, our guest in the class is going to be Dr. David Imhotep, author of the book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. All right, Sister Nubia Wardford, look, we're out of time right here. So I'll talk to you tomorrow, sister, okay? Thanks for coming on.
Okay, then. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for everybody listening. Bye-bye.
All right, peace. Okay, everybody watching on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, and my YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep. Keep watching. We'll go for a few more minutes. We're out of time here on 910 AM Superstation WFDF. Right now, it's correct wrong behavior is not over till we win. Stay tuned for Pastor Greg Davis. We'll talk to you tomorrow night. Peace. All right, everybody, stand by. Stand by. Stand by. Okay. All right. I ain't planning to keep Sister Nubia that long, but she was going, so I'm just hell. I'm gonna let her talk. I'll let her talk, you know. So that's a bad sister right there. Okay. I wanted to squeeze in this other story. So how's everybody doing? And I got a presentation to prepare for that I have to give tomorrow also. So I'll be up late. How's everybody doing today? We posted a link here. You can register for the online course. And I wanted to talk about this other story. So we talked about the impeachment. We talked a little bit about that. I want to go to this other clip dealing with impeachment. But first, I want to deal with this story here. This deals with an ancient beer factory unearthed by archaeologists. An ancient beer factory unearthed by archaeologists. Okay. Now, as I talked about before, and if you see any of my presentations, you hear me say the deeper they dig, the blacker the planet gets, the more research they do, the older we get. Okay, the deeper they dig, the blacker the planet gets, the more research they do, the older we get. And these archaeological discoveries, I mean, they happen. You read about them every month, sometimes every other week. And I saw them talk about it. It was maybe for about 30 seconds on MSNBC. But all the news outlets have an article dealing with this, okay? So I'm going to talk about this story here. Ancient beer factory unearthed by archaeologists in Egypt. And this story came out Saturday, February 14th. Saturday, February 14th. The deeper they dig, the blacker the planet gets, the more research they do, the older we get. And you hear Sister Nubia talking about civilizations going back 100,000 years ago, like in Kush, and their discoveries that show Homo sapiens, Homo sapiens in Africa going back. They found them in Morocco, if I remember correctly. 300,000 to 350,000 years ago. This is a discovery from June of 2017. This is one of the archaeological discoveries I talk about in the course, in the online course. So when these new discoveries take place, they keep having to push the timelines back, right? You remember Juvenile had the song back in like 1999, Back That Thing Up. Cash Money Records taking over for the 99 and the 2000. Remember, Back That Thing Up. When these new discoveries come out, they keep having to push the timelines back. They keep having to back that thing up. All right. So Egypt has announced dozens of ancient discoveries in the past couple of years in the hope of attracting more tourists. Ancient beer factory unearthed by archaeologists in Egypt. Okay. So it talks about how American and Egyptian archaeologists have unearthed what could be the oldest known beer factory at one of the most prominent archaeological sites of ancient Egypt, a top antiquities official said Saturday. Okay, Mustafa Waziri, Secretary General of the Supreme Council of Antiquities, said the factory was found in Abydos, an ancient burial ground located in the desert west of the Nile River, over 280 miles south of Cairo. Now, he said he said the factory apparently dates back to the region of King Narmer, okay, also known as Amos. So you're talking about going back to the first dynasty, okay? King Narmer, who was widely known for his unification of ancient Egypt, ancient Kemet, okay, unifying Upper and Lower Kemet at the beginning of the first dynastic period, 3150 BC to 2613 BC, during that period of time, okay? So this time, I mean, now this is something that we should be discussing during African American History Month. This is something we should be discussing during African American History Month. No, so I understand we're going to talk about runaway slaves, and I understand we're going to talk about we work from can't see morning to can't see night. Okay, all right, but it's like sometimes the limitations that we operate within are fictitious. Sometimes Professor Kaba Kamene, one day he said, he was talking, it was myself and Dr. Ray Higgins. And Professor Kaba Hiawatha Kamene said that African people are like whales and goldfish bowls. We're like whales and goldfish bowls. Our potential is much bigger than the constraints that we are put within, that we operate within. And these are like constraints on our minds. So, you hear me say that when we have these African American History Month celebrations, we don't have to just keep recycling the same 15 to 20 sanitized Negroes every year. Yes, it's important to study about them, but we put these constraints on the information that we deal with in these celebrations, and we just operate within the circumference of slavery or 1619 up until now. Okay, these are the types of things also that we need to deal with during these during this monthly cultural celebration. So I want to play this clip here from play the audio of this clip from the story from NBC. Let me see. Should have audio. I thought this one had audio. Okay, okay, let me see here. There's one with audio. We'll go to that one just a second here. So archaeologists at the Saqqara site near Cairo have unearthed, let me see, hold on, have uncovered dozens more sarcophagi, some with mummies inside dating back to ancient Egypt. There was one clip I was trying to find. Maybe that's not it. I'll try to locate it here in just a second. But in addition to dealing with slavery and 1619 and things like that, in addition to that, information like this that comes out all the time, this is information that we want to incorporate into the discussion as well. Let me see here. I think this is one. Just 1 second here. Okay, we'll get that queued up. All right. Let's look at the article some more here. Okay, so archaeologists found 8 huge units. Each is about 65 feet long and 8 feet wide. Each unit includes 40 pottery basins in 2 rows, which had been used to heat up a mixture of grains and water to produce beer. Okay, let's see. All right, let's continue here. I was trying to find the clip I was looking for, but we'll continue. All right, so the joint mission is co-chaired by Dr. The joint mission is co-chaired by Dr. Matthew Adams of the Institute of Fine Arts, New York University, and Deborah Vishak, assistant professor of ancient Egyptian art history and archaeology at Princeton University. Now, Dr. Adams said the factory was apparently built in this area to provide royal rituals with beer, given that archaeologists found evidences showing the use of beer in sacrificial rites of ancient Egyptians, okay, or the ancient Kemites. British archaeologists were the first to mention the existence of the factory in the early 1900s, but they couldn't determine its location, the Antiquities ministry said. With its vast cemeteries and temples from the earliest times of ancient Egypt, Abydos was known for monuments honoring Osiris or Asar, ancient Egypt's god of the underworld or deity, or a Neter, and the deity responsible for judging souls in the afterlife. Okay, so when you look at the judgment scene, you know, you'll see Asar. I'll try to pull up a picture here of the judgment scene. So now this is like I said on Sunday show. A lot of times people think this information is hidden, and many times it's just hidden in plain sight. I mean, they're talking about Osiris. This is NBC News, Associated Press. This is just right out here. They're talking about Osiris, ancient Egypt, 5,000-year-old brewery discovered. So a lot of times we think this information is hidden. Sometimes it is, but a lot of times it isn't. You just have to know where to look for it. Okay. I'm gonna pull up I think I'm still trying to transfer information over to the new laptop. So I'm gonna pull up a picture of the judgment scene. And when you read Now Violent Contributions to Civilization by Tony Browder, Browder has it in there as well. But let's do this here. Let's bring this up here. Okay. I want to get a good picture of it here for you. So pull this up here. All right, let's flip over and try to show you this here. Okay, so this is from Ancient Kemet, the judgment scene. When you read Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization, if you read some of Dr. Ben's books like Black Man of the Nile and His Family, I think he has the judgment scene in there. I have a copy of that. I read that like 20 years ago. So you'll see Asar sitting here on the throne of judgment. Asar, who the Greeks called Osiris. You'll see the scale of Ma'at. Okay. You'll see the devourer here. If you lived your life correctly based upon the 42 admonitions of Ma'at, which is the precursor to the 10 Commandments, then your heart would be lighter than a feather. They put your heart on the scale and judge your heart, which is the essence of your soul, against the feather of Ma'at. And Ma'at was a winged deity in ancient Kemet that was the personification of truth, justice, righteousness, balance, harmony, order, and reciprocity, the 7 virtues of Ma'at. Okay, so if you lived your life correctly, then you will go into the afterlife. You have Anpu or Anubis, the jackal-headed netter, that and see the jackal, not to make this too deep, but when you see the deities, they oftentimes have characteristics of an animal. They're incorporating nature because they understand it's an appreciation of the gifts that the creator has given to various animals. So the jackal has a very keen sense of judgment, keen sense of smell and taste, which is a higher sense than humans. So you have Anpu or Anubis who balances the scales because it takes a keen sense of judgment to be able to do that. You have Dahuti or Thoth that records the record of what happens. Okay. And when you look at Now Valley Contributions to Civilization by Tony Browder, he talks about the Hootie in there, and he talks about how I think it's page 95. They show how the deities in ancient Kemet influenced the deities amongst the Greeks and influences the deities amongst the Romans. All right. So just to make a long story short, but check this out. This is the judgment scene. Okay, this is a depiction of it here. But this is what they're talking about. So you can look at these articles. You can look at these articles here that it's just stuff that's in the news, and it connects you back to ancient Africa. Okay, it connects you back to ancient Africa. So if we go back and look at the beer, the story about beer, but it's found in ancient Egypt, 5,000 years old. Okay, if we go back and look at that story, this is NBC News. This is not conspiracy theory stuff. This is not far-fetched anything. All the news outlets reported on this discovery. All you have to do is Google it. All the news outlets reported on this. All right. So they're talking about Osiris. And then then when you study Asar, Aset, and Heru, who the Greeks call Osiris, Isis, and Horus, then that gets into Heru being born of a virgin birth on December 25th to Aset, the virgin, who the Greeks called Isis. All of this is connected. Okay, all of this is connected. Let me pull up. These are some of the things I deal with in the online course. Also, I want to show you a picture of Aset, the first Holy Trinity, Asar, Aset, and Heru. Now, what I say may go outside the circumference of some people's awareness. What I say may go outside the circumference of some people's awareness. Just because you never heard it before, disagree with it, or don't like it, does not mean it's not true. It just means you have to do some research to understand what I'm talking about. But this is, but when you deal with Christianity and the Ka rest, Ka meaning spirit, rest meaning to rise, the Ka rest, the rising of the spirit. Okay. Christianity, look, you're dealing with a retelling of many stories coming out of ancient Kemet, ancient Egypt, Sumer, Mesopotamia. You're dealing with a retelling of these stories. So this is Asar, Aset, and Heru, who the Greeks called Osiris, Isis, and Horus. Asar is in the middle. Okay, this is Heru with the falcon head. Now, when you look at Heru born of a virgin birth on December 25th. Now, when you look at some pictures of some depictions, because it wasn't a picture, it was a painting, because they didn't have photographic cameras back then. When you look at, I may really go outside the circumference of some people's awareness. When you look at paintings of Jesus or Yeshua, because the letter J wasn't created to 1630 AD. So if you look up the word Jesus in the dictionary and look at the etymology of the word, it takes you back to Yeshua. Okay, the Hebrew Yeshua. Letter J didn't exist back then. So his mama ain't call him Jesus because there was no letter J. You see some depictions of Jesus with a dove over his head, right? And you see Heru with a falcon's head. Because what they did was, as it gets reinterpreted into Christianity and it goes through its various forms, because early Christianity look different than Christianity today. The Christianity that we deal with today largely is the result of the 21 ecumenical councils that took place from 325 AD to, with the first council of Nicaea, 325 AD to about 1870, and them determining what's going to be taken out of the Bible, what's going to be practiced, how it's going to be practiced, how people pray, whether they pray standing up, whether they pray kneeling, when Easter is going to be celebrated, because that was one of the results of the Third Council of Trent of 1563, determining when Easter is going to be celebrated and how to calculate that. Because coming out of that Third Council of Trent, that's when you get the creation of the Gregorian calendar, introduced in 1582, named after Pope Gregory XIII, which is the calendar we use today. And it's based upon how long it takes the earth to rotate around the sun counterclockwise, 365 days, 5 hours, 48 minutes, and about 46 seconds. That calendar is the result of the Third Council of Trent, 1563 AD. So you have to understand, so to understand Christianity, okay, and we look at the Helios, the Holy Bible, or Helios Biblos, the Sun Book. Go to the dictionary and look up the etymology of the word Holy Bible. Right? So to understand the existence of something, you must understand the pre-existence of existence. I can take you from the Helios Biblos straight back to ancient Africa, straight back to the Nile Valley region of Africa. You read not just Nile Valley Contributions of Civilization, not just that one, but you read. Now, here's what happened. I didn't get to bed at 6 in the morning. I was cleaning up and rearranging stuff, and I can't find anything. Hold on. You read Christianity Before Christ by Dr. John G. Jackson. Hold on. I can't find nothing now. Wait a second. Where's Christianity Before Christ? Okay, I think I put the stuff over here. So now I have to rearrange stuff back so I can find it. Because all right, Christianity Before Christ. I'm trying to make this short. Christianity Before Christ by Dr. John G. Jackson. The World's 16 Crucified Saviors by Kersey Graves. You start seeing traces. What happens is you start seeing traces of this taking you right back to ancient Kemet, right back to ancient Africa. All right, let me see something here. Let's look at this. What we have next. Oh, this right here. Oh, this tells it all right here. This tells it all right here. Okay, so when I was a kid, 1970s, I used to get up Saturday morning and I used to watch Saturday morning cartoons and Saturday morning TV shows, right? So there was this TV show, they had the Shazam and ISIS hour on CBS, Saturday mornings, 1970. I still have comic books from the 1970s that show the Shazam and ISIS hour, okay? And they show, let me see. They show this white woman as ISIS. And this is on a Saturday morning cartoon. And when you watch it, a few years ago, I was watching episodes. It's called The Secrets of ISIS. Let me blow this up. It's called The Secrets of ISIS. That's the name of the TV show from the 1970s. The Secrets of ISIS came on CBS. It was like 11 a.m., 11:30 a.m. They showed it was the Shazam and ISIS hour. At the beginning of the show, they had episodes of Hulu. They had episodes on Hulu of the Secrets of ISIS. It may still be there. When I was going back, I was a few years ago, I was watching it. And at the beginning of the show, they talk about how she got her powers from ancient Egypt. And they start naming Egyptian queens. They talk about Hatshepsut and different things like this. I'm like, I'll be damned. But what happened was they put this into a Saturday morning TV show, but then they have a white woman portraying ISIS. And they say she got her powers from ancient Egypt, but they ain't say that the ancient Egyptians were Africans. Because I remember watching this in the 70s. And, you know, my friends were watching things like this, but we were never told that ISIS was an African woman. So this is the DVD. This is the cover of the complete DVD box set series, The Secrets of ISIS. So she is a copy of Osset, who was a virgin, husband of Osiris, who gives birth to Heru, who the Greeks call Horus, on December 25th, the virgin birth. Then, if you look at all of this is connected. You look at the constellation of Virgo in the zodiac, the constellation of Virgo. Virgo in Latin means virgin. In ancient times, that constellation was of Osset, who the Greeks call Isis. All of this is connected. You just have to understand the chronology of history. Okay, so what happens, because I have a background in marketing and media as well as history, what I like to do is take elements from media that you see right in front of your face, because the truth is right in front of your face. You just have to understand how to decode the messages, how to decode the symbols. Okay, this is why I said, like last week, I said you have to get a symbols encyclopedia or a symbols dictionary. I have a symbols dictionary that decodes like 2,000 symbols from around the world. The truth is right in front of our faces, but we have to understand the pre-existence of existence to understand what we're seeing. We look at the article from NBC News. This ain't conspiracy theory stuff. This is not hocus pocus. Okay, we look at the article from NBC News. They're talking about an ancient brewery in ancient Egypt, 5,000 years ago, oldest brewery that's known to man. Okay, and right in the article, they talk about Osiris and deities from ancient Kemet, things like this. British archaeologists were the first to mention the existence of the factory in the early 1900s, but they couldn't determine its location, the Antiquities Ministry said. With its vast cemeteries and temples from the earliest times of ancient Egypt, Abydos was known for monuments honoring Osiris, ancient Egypt's god or Neter of the underworld, and the deity responsible for judging the souls in the afterlife. It's just right there. Now, what it'd be good to do is, I ain't trying to get anybody in trouble, show this to your pastors, show this to your ministers, have a conversation about the origins of Christianity, how it takes you back to ancient Kemet, ancient Egypt. The necropolis had been used in every period of early Egyptian history, from the prehistoric age to Roman times. Egypt has announced dozens of ancient discoveries in the past couple of years in the hope of attracting more tourists. But when these discoveries take place, we should be having discussions here about the discoveries and understanding how all this is connected and putting this into a timeline of history that then leads up to the Moors going into Europe, because the Moors are taking the teachings from the Nile Valley region of Africa, from ancient Kemet, into Europe. to bring Europe out of the Dark Ages. And that's when all this stuff gets flipped around. During that period of time, that 800-year period of time, all that stuff gets flipped around and is going to lead to the transatlantic slave trade. The tourism industry has been reeling from the political turmoil following the 2011 popular uprising that toppled longtime autocrat Hosni Mubarak. The sector was also dealt a further blow last year by the coronavirus pandemic. Of course it was. But read this article, and all the outlets have stories on this. See, this is what I'm saying. This is not hidden. And we posted, this was the first story I saw about this. Face to Face Africa has one. All the news outlets have it. National Geographic, all that stuff. Okay, now this is I found a news story. Okay. Archaeologists in Egypt unearthed ancient beer factory in Abydos. This is from 9news.com. Let me see if we can cue this up here. This was one clip that was playing. All right, how's everybody doing? All right, and if you all like this type of information, also be sure to register for my online course, Ancient Kemet, the Moors and The Maafa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Let me back this up.
Archaeologists have made an amazing discovery in Egypt. More than 4,000-year-old tomb has been uncovered in an untouched area in Giza. The walls of the 10-meter-long tomb are covered with colourful carvings and statues that have stunned experts due to their near-perfect condition. It's hoped they will find more treasures. They continue to search the site in coming months.
So there's going to be more coming out about that as well, about this discovery. Let me post this article here from 9news.com also for you to check out. But yeah, the deeper they dig, the blacker the planet gets, the more research they do, the older we get. Let me see, I want to share this quickly. Okay, and then remember, Sista Nubia Wardford would be our guest speaker for our class Tuesday, February 16th, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you miss any of it, you can go back and watch it over and over again. Once you register for the class, you can watch them as many times as you want to, watch them around the world. And Tuesday, February 23rd, our guest speaker would be Dr. David Imhotep, author of the book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. Okay, now, there was one other thing I wanted to show. We did that, and then do I have it in here? I'm not sure if I have it in this one here. On yesterday's show, on Sunday's show, I talked about the term Africa and how the term Africa is not named after a Roman general named Publius Cornelius Scipio Africanus. It's the other way around. Publius Cornelius Scipio took his surname Africanus from the territory he was conquering, from the territory he conquered. It's named after the Afri, who are a group of Black African people in Algeria and Tunisia. And Tunisia used to be called Carthage. This is dealing with the Punic Wars. I referenced Cassell's Latin English Dictionary, 2002 edition, because this is something I talk about in the class. I had to find a slide. And I'm still trying to get reorientated because I'm still transferring information over from old laptops and external hard drives to this new laptop. 2002 edition, Cassell's Latin English Dictionary, page 11, in the entry 4 of fear, that's why I have it highlighted here, tells you, it defines Africanus. Africanus, African belonging to Africa. Okay, this is what Africanus means, belonging to Africa, or it could mean of Africa, as a surname conferred upon two of the Scipios, as a surname conferred upon two of the Scipios. Okay, Africanus means belonging to Africa. his family's last name was Scipio, not Africanus. Okay, so hopefully we'll stop spreading this nonsense around that Africa was named after a Roman general. No. Also, Willie Lynch never historically existed. The Tooth Fairy doesn't exist either. Oops, I mean, I should say that for kids. Okay. But Willie Lynch never historically existed either. Okay, just put all those myths to rest. I wanted to play this last clip. Okay, we posted the information there for the online class. I wanted to play this last clip. This deals with going back to the impeachment trial. This is Delegate Stacy Plasquette, and this is a bad sister right here. Stacy Plasquette, who represents the U.S. Virgin Islands. Okay, now, as I said before, as I said last week, the U.S. Virgin Islands are a U.S. territory. So it's not a state. So she does not get she represents them, but she does not get a vote in the House when it came to the impeachment, to vote to impeach Trump in the House, because she's a delegate. She does not get a vote. All right. But I want to go to this clip here. This is from the Readout with Joanne Reed. And Stacy Plasquette is talking about, she's asked a question about witnesses. Okay, why didn't you all have witnesses? Why do you more witnesses, whatever? Okay. And I want to go to this clip here because she's correct with this. Let's go to this clip.
Is still liable for everything he did while he was in office. As an ordinary citizen, didn't get away with anything yet.
Joining me now is impeachment manager Stacy Plasquette, Democrat of the U.S. Virgin Islands. I have my own thoughts, but I want to turn to you to find out, Representative Plasquette, how does it feel as somebody who helped make this case and did a fantastic job, by the way? I think everyone believes you acquitted yourself very well, and all of the impeachment managers did. To listen to that guy, Mitch McConnell, who voted to acquit, who then describes basically the same case that you all were making, and basically makes it sound like, well, he thinks Trump is guilty, and said, oh, I would have considered maybe voting to acquit, but this is all irrelevant. How do you feel hearing him stand up there and essentially morph into Jamie Raskin?
Well, I'm not allowed to say exactly what I think on TV, but what I will say is that he just gave our opening statement and our closing statement. He said what we said was that the president, over a period of protracted time, perpetrated a big lie that got his base angry. He knew who these people were. He perpetuated their anger and their violence and then directed it at the Capitol for his own purposes to try and retain power and to destroy our democracy. Mitch McConnell said it all. That's exactly what happened. That's what we proved. And what is most infuriating is that he says he is not convicting him because of a jurisdictional issue, one that was settled at the beginning of the trial. We had constitutional discussions by a constitutional professor, Jamie Raskin, along with other evidence that we put other opinions from the left and the right that we put into evidence that said that this is not a question about having the ability to impeach a former president. But on top of that, the reason the impeachment articles were not walked over before January 20th is because Mitch McConnell was the majority leader at the time and would not receive them.
All right. So because Mitch McConnell said the earliest that the impeachment trial would take place would be January 19th, which was the day before the inauguration, because McConnell was still in charge of the Senate. So you can't say it was a jurisdictional issue or he's not president anymore, so he can't be impeached. You can't make that argument because you were the one that delayed the Senate trial for impeachment, because McConnell was in charge of the Senate. You can't say it's a constitutional issue because you can't remove a president once he's out of office because, one, the U.S. Senate, based upon the U.S. Constitution, has control over all impeachment trials. And the U.S. Senate makes the rules, and the U.S. Senate, they voted that it was constitutional to hold a trial. So you can't say it's not constitutional when the Senate decided it was constitutional. One. Two, the vote on the one article of impeachment for inciting an insurrection took place in the House of Representatives while Trump was still in office. So you can't, on the one hand, have the first process of the impeachment take place in the House while the president is still in office, but then have the Senate trial delayed, the impeachment Senate trial delayed, and then say, well, you can't hold the impeachment trial now because he's out of office. But the article of impeachment was voted on while he was still in office. So now so there were 7 brave Republicans that voted to impeach Trump. Senator Bill Cassidy was one of them. And they're getting backlash. He was censured in his home state of Louisiana. So Trump is facing, well, one, this is all those 43 traitors that voted to acquit Trump. And they're lying. They want to say it's because it's not constitutional. Yes, it is. You voted and ruled it was constitutional in the Senate. And then there's also precedents. William Belknap, former Secretary of War from 1876. So there's a precedence for this, who was impeached after he resigned from office. So what you have are a lot of spineless, traitorous Republicans who have to be voted out of office, who have blood on their hands. Because you have to remember, going back to early February 2020, they had a chance to remove Trump from office, and they were too cowardly to do this. They wanted to save their political careers. They were afraid of death threats they were getting and all different types of things like that. If you're going to acquiesce, if you're going to violate your oath to defend the Constitution against enemies both foreign and domestic, if you're going to acquiesce, then you should resign from office. If you're getting death threats, things like this, contact the FBI, contact the U.S. Capitol Police. But if you're going to be a traitor, you should resign from office. So, consequently, because they didn't remove Trump from office in early February 2020, you have hundreds of thousands of people who have died from coronavirus because he mishandled the coronavirus pandemic. If they had removed Trump from office, they could have saved hundreds of thousands of people's lives, at least tens of thousands of people's lives, probably 100,000 of people's lives, because we have close to 470,000 people dead now. This is an example of how elections have consequences. This is an example of how elections have consequences. So as I said numerous times before, in 2016, when Donald Trump asked African Americans, what the hell do you have to lose? The correct answer was everything. All right. So look, we're going to get out of here. That's going to do it for us. Visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. And you can register for our online course right on the homepage. We have the information there. When you go to AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, we'll show it to you. And also you can listen to podcasts of our shows as well. We have audio podcasts. We have the podcasts on Facebook and YouTube. Go to our website, scroll down, and you'll see the information about the radio show. Click here to listen to audio podcasts. Click here to read articles by Michael Imhotep. Information for the online course. Click here to register here. Takes you to the next page. You scroll down and right here, click on enroll. Okay. So it's regularly $130 on sale, $80 as soon as you register. You can watch a class from February 9th. We had a good class. We ended up doing 2.5 hours for our February 9th class. All right. And we'll see you in class Tuesday, February 16th. All right, look, we had to get out of here. Remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you tomorrow night. Peace.